Hey, welcome to the BBA today. This is episode number 99, number one under the magical 100, which makes it maybe even more special because 99 is like the biggest number you can have with only two digits. And we have two folks here to talk. One of them is me, Ron Collins, the general manager of the Bikini Krill, and I am absolutely thrilled to have with me the commissioner, the general manager of the Las Vegas Hustlers, Matt Rectenwald himself. Matt, welcome back to the BBA today. It's been quite a while. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on.
I was thrilled to have you reach out and say you had a few minutes here this morning. I know you're really super busy these days. The league knows you're super busy these days. Um, just before we get deep into BBA Neep, just how are you doing for the guys? What's
Doing good.
That's good.
Well, it's no longer the bleak Wisconsin winter. We're doing good. Starting to get into a nice little pattern back at work again, and um, Julie's recovering nicely. Say hi, Julie. Julie says hi. She's sitting right here.
We all say hi, Julie.
Because I it sounds weird to say, but you know how much I love an audience for a podcast. What? But anyways,
Well,
yeah,
you don't
I kind of
usually
feel
have
like
100 people sitting outside your office cheering you on with everything that you say.
no, no. But yeah, I'm kind of excited to, you know, even though I do all the Sims, I've been a little disconnected from what's actually going on in the league. Um, so it'll be fun to take a little deep dive. I've got my off-season center up on the screen, and I can certainly talk to you with knowledge about what's going on in Las Vegas, and some of the big scale stuff. But
Yeah, I definitely want to get into that. Just to level set for all the millions of people who will be listening to this in the future. We are currently
millions,
sitting, yeah, millions and millions actually. We're a global audience, so it could be
mhm,
upwards of a billion that will actually be, taking in this
right?
fantastic broadcast. Um, but we have just crossed into, we're at January 1st, right? 2063.
Are
Uh,
2063,
the international free agents
90.
are now officially open. Free agency has been going on for a couple of months now. We had some actually huge signings at the very beginning of the free agency period, which is a little unusual. Just first off, how are you just feeling about the league and what are the things that you're most excited about going forward?
Um, I think our activity level is awesome. We have just a great group of GMs. Um, I love it when we add somebody new who I can tell is going to be like a long timer, right?
Yep.
Like Graham has got me super excited.
Graham is kicking
I
butt.
mean, wow. Um, yeah, somebody put up the meme, you're going to fit in here just fine. And I was like, yep, that's about right. Um, I'm kind of excited about these franchise moves and rebrands, even though we're going through some technical issues with some of the graphics. We'll get there. But it's pretty cool to have some fresh looks. Um, and now, looking at the off-season center, guess who has there's two teams who have done the most improvement by WAR so far in the BBA. Can you guess who they are?
My first gut guess would be through free agency, or
It's
just overall.
all
Yes,
it's
overall
trades,
interesting.
WAR, waiver claims, everything. It's
Wow.
by WAR gained,
Yeah,
net WAR gained.
yeah. My first gut reaction would have been Louisville, just because of their big signings in the first.
Louisville is number two.
There you go. I feel like I'm on Family Feud with hit the little button and get the little dinger going.
Yeah. I'm your man, Steve Harvey.
I
then you just
absolutely love
if
that equation.
somebody says some dumb ass, he'll be like, who's improved the most? Las Vegas, and he'll be like,
I love that equation.
anyways,
Matt, Steve,
all
Harvey,
right,
Rectenwald. I got to
yeah,
come up with number one then. Who is number one?
he came in a blazing,
Oh my goodness.
and it's not the Blazers.
um,
New GM,
are you kidding me? Is it Shoeless?
nope,
New
other
GM?
new GM.
um,
They may
Ben?
have just moved.
Okay, so you're talking about Ben then.
I am talking about.
Or are you talking about, oh, Justin?
Oh,
There you
yes,
go. There you go.
Rosenblatt.
Rosenblatt.
So
That makes sense.
Rosenblatt and Louisville are um, just about more than double anybody else in the league in WAR gained. Rosenblatt is 7.5, Louisville 7.0,
Yeah,
and then the next one is Twin Cities at 3.7.
there you go. Yeah, I should have caught Rosenblatt just because. Um, but part of the problem is things have been moving so fast and so the combination fast slow, right? Is it
Right?
Justin came in and made those huge, huge moves at the very beginning. What Isom Batter and who's the other guy you brought in? But
Yeah, pitcher.
oh, Molina, God. Well, duh. But now that several other, my tongue will eventually work, Matt. It will
La la la
fundamentally do
la.
something. To your point earlier, I think one of the really cool things about the league at this precise moment is that despite some of the uh, unfortunate delays on simming and so forth that I know that we've run into, the league is really filled with guys who are active in doing lots of things, right?
Hmm?
So the mere fact that Justin came in and did all those things, I am focused on Louisville because I'm just intrigued with Louisville, so it was stuck in my head. But I am not as focused in in that paltry, Johnson League. I mean, who really cares
Uh,
about the Johnson League? But at
yeah,
the end of the day, there's so many things going on. I'm trying to capture all the things in my brain, and I lose track of everything. So it's a fun
yeah,
time period because, like you said, there are so many GMs who are really engaged, right? And Kurt and I talked about like poor Chris in Portland. I think he picked an unfortunate couple of months to have stress in his job because as soon as he backed off of the pedal just a little bit in Portland, you could see his team start immediately falling.
yeah,
So it's like one of those things where if you get a whole bunch of general managers working all at the same time, all focused, then if you have to take your foot off the accelerator for a little while, then your risk goes up because you don't slide anybody past waivers. You don't slide, you don't get that one Rule 5 guy that everyone missed, or so forth. I mean, I had like 7 or 8 guys on my Rule 5 list, and I
yeah,
did not get any of them. So, yeah,
right. Yeah, nor did I.
yeah. If
Nor
if
did
all these
I.
other GMs would just stop working so hard, this game would be a whole lot more fun. How's
Yeah,
that?
right? Come
Well, talk to me about
on.
Las Vegas. I saw on Discord just a few moments ago. You said that you have not made any moves yet. And then you know the dun 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 came, and you said that will
Well,
change this sim. What's up with Vegas?
uh,
What are your thoughts on the Hustlers and going forward there?
I honestly, I'm real happy with my team as is. I don't think I needed to do anything. Um, it's plug and play. I've done a really good job of keeping costs low the last few years. Now I started the off season with like the first or second least amount of cap room. Um, I have like $10 million and that's it. I haven't spent a dime of it. I did try to sign one big name guy, and that was Josh Clark, but he did not want to take a backloaded deal.
Hmm.
so wasn't able to do that. To be honest, this free agency crop for me is quite underwhelming, and I think that's probably echoed around the league with the amount of trades we've seen. I know a lot of the trades have been just, shoeless, trying to completely put his own stamp on that Cobble Hill Robbins franchise, which is awesome. I would do the same thing in that position. In fact, taking over a really crappy team is one of the most fun things to do. When I took over when I took them over and moved them to Nashville, they were not good. I gutted them out, built them up, and Chad has kept them humming ever since. Now, as far as Vegas goes, what am I going to do this sim? Well, that
Yeah,
sweeping proclamation,
Tell us all
it
of
could
your
just be
secrets,
me
Matt.
signing a minor league a minor league contract because I put some out there. Did I dip my toe into the international free agents? Yes, I did. Um, I am fully confident that I will be outbid on everybody that I bid on. Even though I was doing, I bid a lot. I have money. Why not use it? But I'm sure it won't be enough.
Yeah,
When,
why do you say
yeah,
that? I have some thoughts on that. I'm interested in. I think a lot of the league, IFA has changed and morphed over the generations and so forth, right? I mean, I can remember back in the time period where there used to be like 8 IFAs, and you either, and 3 of them were stellar superstars and, whatever. But now there's usually about 120. So that
right.
expands the number of,
Uh-huh.
not the big teams just can't come in and drop $50 million and buy them all. It just can't happen,
Right.
right? So, what
Well,
are your thoughts on the game theory of IFA and
sure.
what you're doing
I
in
think in the
Vegas?
past, yeah, they've been in the past maybe not as volatile as they are right now, and that's the way they should be, right? Because every year in that other fake league MLB, you hear about all these wonderful guys that got signed in international free agency, and oh, they're going to be amazing. And who is that guy? Pitcher Michael Yanoa
Yep.
that the A's signed one time for all the money in the world never turned out to be anything. That's how it should be, right? Um,
Yeah, and then you get that
so
1 out of 20 or whatever who goes out and,
you know,
well, I mean, out of 20, you get 3 guys who are
you're
major
one Jackson
leaguers and,
Churia,
yeah, and
right?
1 guy who's a real star, right?
Yep.
Um, so,
Now I think you and I are a lot alike in our spending. That you have certain limits. I have certain limits that I will do before I just think it's crazy, and I won't go past that point. Which is why I very rarely hit on free agency, and I very rarely sign IFAs in the first sim. Um, Now, I think these offers I made on a few guys are pretty strong, but I mean, what was the biggest, like last year? Do you remember what were some of the offers that these guys got? Like a 70, 80 potential guy. How much money were they getting?
yeah, I don't remember what last year was, but I know, 2 to 3 years ago, there were 2 major guys, and I want to say Jacksonville and Portland each spent like 20 something million on each of those, which
Yeah,
add on tax, they were done, right? And they
yeah.
turned out to not, Portland's definitely turned, actually, I think both of them, was it Renders and Magnos,
So
Cosmos.
they're both nothing. Yeah.
Both of them are looking like they might play in the big leagues, but
Oh, really? Hmm.
but they're not $40 million players, right? And they're
Can't do
still, I
that.
mean, there's still development time to go. They may not, but they look, like I said, they look like they might play. They don't look like they're going to play in the big leagues, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I know I spent like 3.5 million on a guy the year before last, and within 2 months he was obviously not going to play in the majors. So now
Well,
he's stuck in my rookie league eating,
yeah.
hot dogs for between two games or whatever.
One of the things with 26 now is it's got this development risk rating.
Right.
Now, I think I went through like 20 of them, and they all said extreme development risk, which is what they should be, right? Extreme development risk. So what I'm guessing that is it takes our development factor and then multiplies it, so it's really operating like it should be. So yeah, the guys that I'm interested in, I probably won't get. So my big proclamation will be me signing some catcher to a minor league contract.
Well, for the Hustlers, that's a big deal.
Well, I've got Claudio Morgan's on the block. Anybody want him?
There you go. That's actually something I can remember. Gosh, back several years back, maybe when we did our very first podcast together, we were talking about. I think when we are both on our games, I think we are quite similar in a few ways, and one of them is intense focus on minor leagues and minor league contracts, and just slowly, incrementally building. Every single sim, if I'm on my game, I'm looking at the minor leaguers and seeing, can I sign somebody who will incrementally improve my backup shortstop in A ball, right? I just want to keep getting better all the time.
I just spent 20 minutes going through every player in my international complex, changing their primary position to fit, because when they come in, they're like shortstop, infield arm 2, infield double play 2, range
OOTP,
5.
how I love
Short?
this.
What are you talking about out of the park? Learn how to generate players, and stop making center fielders with 10 range and 2 speed. What? Come on.
They're very, very
If only there
sharp
were
at
two guys
positioning themselves, Matt.
if only there were 2 guys on a beta team who could bring this stuff up.
If only. If only they did.
No, it's just the speed thing and the positions just ugh.
Yeah.
But anyways, I digress.
That's the beauty of Out of the Park before it's all said and done, is those things, they're really annoying. But there's no I understand some reasoning why they have done things the way they have done things. I just think that they're missing the boat, and they don't have to do it that way.
Yep.
But we could
Yeah,
spend
so
we could spend a
overall,
lot of good time complaining about how Out of the Park does its
it's
thing.
great though, right?
But yeah, I'm actually looking forward to seeing. I have, for me as a spectator of the BBA, I have grown to. I really like the current mix version of IFA as a source of entertainment, simply because
Yeah.
everybody can play. Right, back 5 years ago and 10 years ago, whatever it was, really the only people who could play in IFA were people who were over revenued, call it, the bigger revenue teams, and so it wasn't as fun. For me, just as an observer, it is now fun to see, San Antonio go off as a low market team and sign 15 IFAs for $200K a piece and just prospect, right? That's fun. Will it work? We'll have to wait for another 4 years to figure it out.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's just another tool to play with. And IFA with those big 120 player piles becomes intellectually game theory fun. Bikini will certainly play in IFA to some degree, especially since we whiffed out on our quest for David Molina and actually have some money. We will see whether we can afford or outbid, because I'm wondering. Usually, there's like, if I remember right, there's like 4 80s and a 75 or 3. Those guys will probably pull some big money.
Not even that much this year.
But
there are Well, there's 480s, 175, and 270s.
Okay. So those guys will pull some fairly reasonable money and attention. So then the game theory says if those guys are getting all the real attention from all the real money, will the 55s and 50s go cheaper, right? Go
Yeah.
unpaid attention to. Or if you counter the other way and you think, well, all the people with the money are realizing that everyone is going to think they're going to focus up there, so we'll go focus down lower, then suddenly could you get the 80s for much cheaper? Probably not,
Right.
but you never know. That's
Yep.
that's fun. So I'm excited to see what happens in IFA. Looking at the free agent signing, well, actually, I've let you off the hook a little bit with Vegas.
Oh yeah. Come on, bring it.
you started talking a little bit about Vegas, and then you siphoned me off into your
I,
minor league stuff
I
and whatnot.
did.
Um,
I did.
what do you think? How do you look at your frontier competition? Would you think in the back of your mind that Vegas is the expected favorite going into 2063? Obviously you're happy with your plan is pretty stable right now. So where do you think Vegas's weaknesses are, and what do you
Sure.
think about the big jumps by Rocky Mountain, Rosenblatt, and somebody else is moving on. I've always been intrigued by Austin. Also, I think they kind of hit a speed bump here this last season. So,
Well, let's go through it. So, do I think I'm the favorite? Well, I won the division last year, if only on the last day of the season. So, I don't look at it like that. I just think I have a good team, and we'll let the chips fall as they may. Is it good enough to win a championship? Nope. I'm lacking the top flight starting pitching that those clubs have. I mean, I have Fleming and Barrera if healthy, which is a big if. Gives me 2, but then it's a little shaky after that. I mean, very solid, but I'm not Hector Silva here. It's not these guys, that you need to win championships. Like Nashville has their fifth starter last year would probably been my number 2 or 3. I
think you
think my
could say that
bullpen.
about a lot of Nashville pitchers and
Well,
other teams.
I think most of their 5s would have been other people's 1s, but my bullpen is still a work in progress. Very interesting thing I've never had before is all of the guys on my 40-man who are in the mix for bullpen all have options, which I've never had happen before. So that's pretty cool, except for Chavez. And then third base is still a battle. I'm going mainly defense at shortstop and center field, but I think most people are. And Madrid hits better than the average all-glove shortstop, and Hampton hits better than the average all-glove center fielder. I think I'm solid around the horn. Oddly, one of my most expensive players, Morgan, is probably one of my weakest links right now. Just based off of his season last year. He still has all the ratings to be a good player. So we'll see how that turns out. But looking at the rest of the division, so we've got Calgary. Still looks like they have good starting pitching. Their bullpen looks a lot shaky to me. They have a big hole in right field, maybe. Nope, it's going to be Farias. Okay. Bear with me as I'm just kind of looking through these as we go. You really put me on the spot.
Take your time.
All right, so Calgary, they're going to be good. They always are. Mexico City. Um, I like Mexico City. Um, really, Zorba's out, so their bullpen again also weak. Looks like Sergio Tormes was their closer last year. That's wild. Yeah, I had him for a minute in 2060, where he had a 6.23 earned run average in 4 games for me. And the last 2 years for Mexico City, he's saved 39 and 45 games.
It's
Crazy. Their
just like
lineup
baseball.
yeah, their lineup is pretty solid. They're still built on defense, so he hasn't gotten too far away from Fred's theories. It looks now Austin. So, what is it that interests you about Austin in particular?
For me, it's mostly the story of Chuck coming in, working his way through. It seems to me like Chuck makes a lot of pretty good decisions in bringing players in, but a lot of times those have not uh, worked out. Because again, probabilities are not 100% of anything. It seemed to me, he even had a bit of a racy time period at the beginning. I think it was of this past year, where he was, up toward the top of the division and the team was playing well. I believe he had an injury or two, and then I also think the development beast hit him. And I can't remember the player in particular that I'm thinking about because Johnson League, you know,
Thanks, Hargrove.
there you go.
Yeah.
So I feel like Austin has been a fun team to spectate because they're the underdog climbing up the ladder, but I'm a little worried now that by the end of this past season that perhaps the momentum that it looked like they had begun to build might have hit a barrier. And I've even seen a few times, I think anyway, I've seen on Discord that Chuck has mentioned that he's considering whether he needs to essentially shut shop up and go back and start over again. I don't know what's going to happen there.
Yeah. Well, he's got a couple of bad contracts that'll come off the books after this year in Socrates and Glenn Fox.
Mm-hmm.
He's still set. I mean, Brent Gilbert was still a really good player last year, but I'm shuddering to think about 3 years from now in 2066, he's still paying him almost 13 million a year. But with next year, even with Gilbert's contract, he's only at 52.9 million
Right.
on the books, so he's got room to do whatever he likes. The issue is what's going on the farm and how can he maximize these guys. I mean, he's got some really nice low level players. Bransington's already up in the majors. He's going to be his ace.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah,
think
I
Julio
wrote a piece on
Blanco
Bransington. I think Bransington's going to be fantastic.
will be a nice player. Pablo Guerrero, be a nice player. Manny Aguilar, nice player. He's got the makings of a really good bullpen already, and some impact bats that are later on down the line. So I don't know if this is going to be a contending year for him, but he's got a lot of future flexibility, and that's a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to Rosenblatt, first of all, they're counting on Molina to be their number one starter. I know you guys have talked about this ad nauseum already, but do you think Molina can be an every fifth day starter?
I think the question is he more valuable as an every fifth day starter or as a stopper kind of a role? And the concern, I think he's more valuable as a stopper if he can stay healthy, but he's always had that fragile tag, and Nashville has been mostly lucky in that he's stayed on the field most of the time. I want to say he's a 3 stamina. So that means
Hmm.
he's going to be a 70 pitch starter. If I had succeeded in Bikini in convincing him to come to pitch on the atoll, I would have used him like I use Vidaka, which is he might start 7 games a year and relieve in a non-closer role, probably a stopper kind of a role. But then I would also be making sure that I bench him on occasion for a day or 3 just to make sure he stays. Or maybe I'd put a pitch count on his relief things. I don't know. That's a hard question because Molina is still, in my mind, essentially the most talented pitcher in the league. There are a few guys who can now make a valid argument against that, but he's in that top 5 class. And so ultimately, I just want him on the mound as often as he can be pitching in tough situations, right? So that
Yeah,
screams to me stopper role.
I agree.
I would definitely have used him in both. Um, the other aspect is I think Rosenblatt. If you take him out of the rotation, I don't know that the rotation is.
Well, they don't have anyone. They have
Yeah.
Denny Tab, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Maybe Bobby Sherman. We've um, it's pretty thin. But I will say this: just looking through their upper 2 levels of their minor leagues, I don't know if there's any team around that has this much position player young talent. Ed Henderson's already established at catcher. You're going to have Derek Hopkins at second, Alan Hedges at third. They'll both be ready sometime this year.
Mm-hmm.
I like Chris Walker in the outfield. You've got Kiyoshi Nagai left field. Mark Buss is a center fielder. Um, they have another 50 potential catcher in Eduardo Gonzalez. They are literally just loaded with position talent. Um, they do have a couple of young pitchers who they might have to use this year. We'll see how it goes in spring. And Jerry Raymond and Esteban Sanchez. But we'll have to see what the rest of free agency is. He's going to have to sign some more pitchers.
Um,
What he has is not going to be good enough.
yeah, I think he was making a comment on Discord about um, thinking he had made himself up to somewhere in the mid 80 win team,
Mm,
83, 84 win team. And that's possible. It's awfully tough when the pitching is that threadbare, but it's possible. The other downside, though, is this is not a time period where, to our point in the earlier part of the conversation, this is not a time period where you're going to sneak a few wins out of general managers whose teams are suffering because they're not able to pay attention. Right?
yeah.
The competition inside the league is pretty fierce. And the Frontier, my take on the Frontier as a general whole, and I'll let you go through the rest of the teams here, is I don't know that I do think Vegas has got to be kind of the presumptive favorite, but I don't view Vegas as the huge, can't fail team. What you've got in the Frontier is a whole slew of teams that are all pretty good and pretty active in about anything that happened in the upper tiers of this division. So, it's possible if Rosenblatt could pick up catch a little lightning in a bottle on the pitching side, that they could be an upper division team. I don't see them being a serious playoff contender the way that they are currently structured, but I've been wrong on
Right.
that before, So anyway,
Yep. All right. San Antonio. It's the George Stickler show. No pitching, not enough position players. Next, I'd just tear it down and start over. He's gotten so many prospect lumps. Just bad luck with specs. Stickler sticking, but not enough else. Boise's interesting to me. I want to talk about Boise.
They are.
Who was it on the forums or on Discord that was disparaging Boise's quote unquote average starting pitchers? Is that a figment of my imagination, or did somebody make a comment like that?
I don't remember that. I mean, there's connotation in that sense. I know there was some conversation about the conversation I remember about Boise's pitchers are the new one, the Witoka and Josh Clark, that were both considered to be contracts were too long, I think, for the safety factor.
Gotcha.
I think that's what I remember. I'm not saying there wasn't a conversation about them having average pitching also, but Boise is always Ben's teams are always really interesting to me because it's clear that he values players a little differently than I value them. And when I start thinking that, well, Boise's kind of done for, next thing I know, he's sitting at third and challenging for the division, right? So, so what are your thoughts on Boise?
Well, I'd say, okay, so you've got Einen already there, right? Add Josh Clark, add Witka. You got Thomas Turner in the twilight of his career. So you got 4 solid starters that are all, let's just say, old, right? Clark's 30. Einen's 36, Turner's 38, Wojcicka's 30. This reminds me of like what I used to do with the Hustlers teams. My teams used to be ancient. I would sign all these guys that were well established. But that being said, in looking through this league or this division, I'd be hard pressed to, other than my own team, to put 4 starters up against those 4. We haven't gotten to Phoenix yet, to be fair, but it's a solid 4. Now, is there some injury concern? Well, let's see. I know Clark was fragile, right? Einen's normal. Wojcicka is durable. So, nope, it might be okay. Now, when it comes to their lineups, there's your real problem. So, there's a whole lot of not much going on with their position players. Like Bill Kuhn is probably their most exciting bat, but they're going to have Dan Raymond or Quentin Trewartha at shortstop. They're going to have Bob Hills in center field. It's brutal. Who are they going to have at first base? Tracy Allison with his 7 home runs last year. Ryan Gozinia.
He might be a little old also.
Yeah, it's pretty bleak when it comes to the position player side of things. But I do like their pitching. Now, if I was Boise and I'm sitting on all these veteran pitchers and it doesn't go the way I think it's going to go, well, you got to start dealing those veteran pitchers because look around the league. Pitching is in great demand. So maybe he can turn that into a bunch of upper-level prospects if it doesn't go well. We'll see. Now, Phoenix.
Yeah, the one problem that Ben's going to have in trading those pitchers is those contracts, though.
Yep.
So that's
I'm being told that Phoenix is now the favorite for the Frontier. What? 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 You picked up a pitcher, and now you're the favorite in the Frontier.
No, I think they're they're the most fun story of the Frontier, and it is fun to pick them as a favorite thing because they're basically moving their entire Liberty team out of Liberty and into Phoenix. So that's the fundamental question. Anyone who is picking Phoenix, when I talk about Phoenix as being at the top of the division, I personally talk about them more from the perspective of um, there's a little bit of tongue in cheek, but the main point is you have no idea how these players are going to play, right? They're coming out of A ball, jumping from A into the major leagues, and they may be fantastic. You know,
They usually are.
yeah, if they
For Phoenix,
yeah if they all perform well, then Phoenix is going to be a contender. I don't know if they're quite ready to be
will they?
champion, but yeah, take liberties.
Can you play? Can you play Rich Darris at shortstop and be a contender? Can you have a negative 15.2 zone rating in 130 games at shortstop and be a contender? That's the plan?
Yeah, I don't think Rich Darris is going to play shortstop for Phoenix this year.
I hope not. Who else is going to?
I have no idea, but you could
Well,
literally
it sure
put
doesn't
almost
look like there's an alternate right now.
yeah. Sean will figure
They
something
gotta
out.
find something. They gotta find something.
Yeah, Sean will figure
But
something out.
that being said, he is loaded with young players.
Mm-hmm.
Low is one of the best pitchers in the league.
Mm-hmm.
That's frightening. Nick Rivers is a good, solid pitcher. Javier Duarte had a nice debut. Balguera is a solid veteran. Ernesto Juarez is a potential stud in the bullpen. You got Adrian Talent. You got Masoud bin Salah Al Din, who is another stud.
Yep.
Tony
Sure.
Lopez. Perez. Get to the chopper. You got all these guys. No Joseph Mother, though, so that's sad. And they did pick up my loogie from last year in free agency, Ishtak Dar.
Yep.
So, yeah, they are interesting. I would concur with interesting.
Yes.
Um,
And they're going to make a massive jump out of the cellar. That much.
Let's just say boom or
fairly
bust.
certain.
Can we say boom or bust?
That's probably fair.
Like they have a super high ceiling, but they also have a very low floor. I could see things going wrong. I could also see things going very right, and then they turn into Nashville.
Yeah, right this minute, I think their floor, without having done the scan that you just did, to me, their floor is probably sixth.
Oh, look at that! They have another more stud relievers in AAA.
Oh yeah, they've got kids coming up.
Hold on, another one. There's three of them. What? Oh no, that's in Toledo. I'm in Toledo, but they're all ready for the major.
That is their AAA, so
they are all ready for the majors.
Right.
AAA is for old people.
There you go. So yeah, I mean, the interesting question to me is Phoenix a 2063 team or a 2064 team?
Yeah, right.
Right, and I'm willing to throw caution in the wind and say that they're going to be awfully good this year. But I agree with you. There's a risk factor for them that doesn't exist with some of the others. I think their floor is. I think they will wind up better than San Antonio and Austin at this point,
and possibly Boise,
and should be
maybe
stronger
Mexico
than
City.
Boise. We'll see. But we're talking about floor here, right? If things go really wrong, if Lololo gets hurt,
things go really well. They're a playoff team.
Yeah, if things go really well, they're a playoff team. But if things go really poorly and a couple of guys get hurt, or one or two of the young kids out of Toledo are actually low on the rating bars rather than super high, you could see them I could see them winding up as low as fifth or sixth, I think, in the division. But I can't see them being in the cellar again. I don't think that's going to happen. And I
Well,
do
I
think
don't.
that
Yeah,
eventually Sean will get around to removing Rich Deers
yeah.
from the field of battle.
Please find a shortstop, Sean. Find a shortstop. If anybody has learned anything from us, it's that defense matters a lot. Um, I've been down the road of trying guys in infield positions that I didn't think were going to work, or in center field, and it always burns me.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, one of
and the
the
minute somebody good at those positions, my pitching gets a whole lot better, and I start winning again.
yeah, one of the things that Kurt and I talk about occasionally, and that I've said before on the boards and stuff, is defense matters, but then there's also the question of the bat side of it, right? If you have a defense first guy who hits 150, you're probably in some trouble because
Yeah.
um, unless the rest of your if you have a Mark Belanger on your team, you're completely fine as long as you've got Frank Robinson and Boog Powell and Brooks Robinson and Paul Blair and all those other guys to hit. But
Uh,
if you don't have those guys, then that 150 batting average at shortstop kills you. Uh, I think I'm also semi-famous about saying, well, sometimes you can go be fine with a little less than stellar defense if your bat is really super good. The problem with that conversation is that it is almost harder to find a really good bat, acceptable defense guy
mhm.
than it is to find a defense first low bat. I mean, you can literally find guys who are 9 and 10 and 11 ranges. Um, and,
Actually,
yeah, if you have a completely defense first shortstop sitting in somebody else's organization sitting at double A, you can get them moderately cheaply. Whereas if you have a 8 range shortstop with a good bat, you're going to have a hard time getting them because if nothing else, that team who has the 8 range with a good bat will throw him into second base,
yeah,
and he'll be a really great second baseman rather than an adequate shortstop.
yeah.
So
Uh,
there is some logistical problem with the idea of punting defense enough to still be competitive and finding a bat.
I have two retorts to that.
Retort away.
All right, first one. Did you know that Rich Dares batted 224 last year with a 581 OPS in addition to his horrible defense?
Yes.
Um,
Rich
all right,
Dares is
so
Rich Dares is a particularly sore point for me, Matt.
I know. So here's an interesting case study of what you were just talking about. So let's take a look at my prospect, Antonio Edison. Okay. I drafted him as a third baseman. His defensive ratings are 9 range, 4 error, 7 arm, 7 double play. Are you with me?
I'm with you.
His bat ratings are going to be 7 contact, 6 BABIP, 8 avoid K, 7 gap, 6 power, 5 I. So pretty good bat, right? I played him at shortstop last year, and at double A in 73 games, he had a 5.7 positive zone rating. At single A in 32 games, a positive 2.1 zone rating, both with above 1,000 efficiencies. And his fielding percentage was a little lower, as you would expect, in the 960s. So is that a guy you would play at short in the big leagues, or would you play him at third base?
Um, the problem, the issue that he had, I would probably put him at shortstop as a trial. The problem for me and I'm interested in your retort to the retort to the retort. The
Yeah,
problem
well,
for me with minor league zone rating and efficiencies is that zone rating and efficiency is relative to the rest of the league, right? So that nine,
exactly.
4, 7, 7, whatever defensive structure, all that really says is that for Double A, that's pretty good, right? And I can tell you that sometimes you look at Double A rosters and they've got 7 and 8 shortstops playing because that's what they got. Um, the thing that goes through my head is until you put him into a position, it's kind of like NFL quarterbacks, right? You can't tell what a college quarterback is going to do until they play in the NFL. I don't care what anybody says right now. The only way you know whether a quarterback is going to do any good in the NFL is whether they play in the NFL and don't get killed.
Right.
After that, so it's the same thing on in that sense with these. I guess if you are a true baseball analytic person, you could go through and figure out the average ratings in each one of the leagues and do some Chisenbaum math and figure it all out. Um, but I would probably, especially if I had the risk factor available to me, if I'm a growing team and I don't have to win every single game right away, I would probably put him at shortstop for about a month or two and look at the numbers. The rating that really concerns me is that error rating at shortstop.
Yep. Me too.
If he were an 11 range or a 10 range, I'd look at a low error rating and go, well, maybe it will just even itself out by the fact that he'll get to more balls. But at the end of the day, a 9 range 4 error tells me that most likely he's in trouble at shortstop. Um, but then the counter is if he can put up a -2 zone rating, you know, 0.992 efficiency or whatever, but outclass, be the top 1 or 2 offensive bat at the shortstop position, then he's an overall positive. Um,
Yeah.
so then, I mean, my guess is he's a third baseman, but and I
Yeah,
would
that's what I'm
also,
thinking.
um, you know, it's just that 4 error rating. 4 error rating in the middle. Maybe he's a better second baseman because the range will be higher than the average second baseman. But even then, the 4 error rating is multiplied by the number of chances you get it. The supposition that Lane had when he did his infamous third base defense doesn't matter is fundamentally he gets so many fewer chances that when he screws up, it doesn't matter as much, right?
Right.
So I don't know. What's your retort to my retort to the retort?
I think you're right. I was just because you brought it up, and I happened to be thinking about that exact thing. Um, it was interesting to hear what your thought is, but yeah, that's an example of just that kind of guy
Yeah,
that
and
I
other people
happen
would
to
have
have
different ideas,
at the
obviously.
ready. Yeah. So yeah.
And
So that's my take.
for a team like Phoenix, for example, if Phoenix were to plug that guy into shortstop, number one, he would be better than Rich Dares. He's probably not going to do a -15 zone rating, is most likely
Right.
with a 9
Well, I think
range.
he's a 6 range, Rich Dares.
Yeah, at this stage, Dares was a 7 range last year, and so he had no reason to be playing shortstop. But Phoenix was also going nowhere, so you know how
Well,
much
why
energy
not
do
use
you
him?
want to
Because
put him there?
once you're paying him,
Right, you're paying
might,
him
might
anyway. So the point there is, if you had a guy like your guy in Phoenix's roster, then fundamentally, who's already going to have a whole bunch of young bats that are going to be stellar, you just plug him into that offense and you figure, well, I'm going to hit around about once every second game, and we will just bludgeon the other team to death, right? So I don't know. That that's why they pay Sean the big BBA bucks to make those kinds of
right?
decisions, right?
That's right. So yeah, so that's kind of, I guess, brings to a close my little take on the Sisters of the Mercy Johnson League Frontier, if you
Yeah.
will.
No, I appreciate that because when you mentioned that you were interested in having some time together, I was very interested in digging into the frontier because I've spent, like I said, I personally spend my time on the Pacific with a sidecar of the Heartland, and then I got intrigued with all the big the competitive environment in the Atlantic is so strong right now with all of the teams trying to one up themselves that it's hard not to pay attention to them to some degree. But the
Mm-hmm.
frontier just has always been, always, the past couple of years, and I've written the previews on them, so I do pay a little bit of attention. They've always just seemed like they're going to be a little competitive cloister of teams um, and it is great to have your more in-depth look at them. So I appreciate that. Um, I think we've been yammering now for a good solid hour or so, so we should probably be bringing this to an end. Do you have any thoughts that I haven't got to? Anything you wanted to talk about or say or?
No, man, I think that's good for now. You could probably only sit and listen to me and you for about an hour anyway, right? The
Well,
the billions of people that will be watching this in 30 years.
there you go. It,
Remember that time the fake baseball league changed the course of our world? We're,
I
we're,
mean,
we're like we're like Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure or something. We're like Wild Stallions, but it's the Brewster Baseball Association.
of course, of course. I mean, these things are so obvious that they almost don't need to be said.
Right.
Well, Matt, I appreciate your time here this morning. I hope things go well for you for the rest of the day. Good luck with your IFAs, and I think I speak for the rest of the league when I say thank you so much for your time and effort. I know things have been a bit of a struggle here for you recently. Hope you have uh, what's the classic phrase? Clean sailing and wind at your back and all that other good stuff going forward. So
All
thank
right.
you so much.
Thanks, Ron.
Yep, I will chat with you later.